What are you doing October 1st through 3rd? I want to hang out with you just south of Nashville, Tennessee, down in Franklin. I'm going to be keynoting the Mental Health Marketing Conference, and I would love for you to be there. We are also sponsoring the clinical track, where there are going to be tons of amazing trainings, all for you in private practice. This is the national gathering for marketers and clinicians in mental and behavioral health. You're not going to want to miss this awesome conference. It's the one conference I'm keynoting this year, and you can read more over at mhmarketing.org. Also, Steve over at Mental Health Marketing has given 25% off to any practice of the practice listeners that want to come to this. Whether you're coming in person or online, you're going to want to use promo code Joe at checkout to get 25% off. I would love for you to come in person for my closing keynote on Thursday, October 3rd at the Mental Health Marketing Conference. But if you can come online, that works as well. Can't wait to hang out with you in Tennessee. Again, that's mhmarketing.org and use promo code Joe at checkout to hang out with me October 1st through 3rd, 2024. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1022. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we help you build a thriving practice you absolutely love. I built a thriving practice, and there were times I did not love it. And so I think that's part of why we focus on that there's lots of ways to make money in the world. And we've chosen a particular master's or doctorate degree that has opened doors for us, but oftentimes we don't realize just how many things we could do with that, how we could create a private practice, how we could grow outside of the private practice, how we don't have to do everything. Oftentimes we've learned a lot of skills at our level, and it's just not appropriate for us to keep doing that. I still remember it would have been probably year 3 of my counseling practice. So I had a couple 1099s, contractors. They were part-time. I was part-time. I still had my full-time job, but we were seeing probably 40 or so clinical appointments per week between the three of us. And this was all still my side gig at the time. And I was taking receipts whenever I would have them, buy something for the business, and I would put them in a drawer. And I remember at the end of the year, I was so sick of itemizing these receipts at the end of the year and adding them up, that I hired someone to go through a box of receipts. Like literally, I handed her a box of receipts, and I labeled each of the receipts like marketing or, dinner with a coworker or things like that. But I paid somebody to go through my receipts. And this was before I knew about QuickBooks being able to automatically integrate with your bank account or things like that. But that was one of my very first things that I started to delegate was the receipts. Now, there's lots of other things that don't involve people that could help with receipts these days. But that was one of my first things of saying, I am sick of itemizing these receipts at the end of the year. Now, I would definitely not do that anymore. But that's what I'm really excited about talking about today with Selina Johnson. Selina is a team operations strategist and speaker. She's your go-to expert for reclaiming your time and embracing an enriched and peaceful life. And her mission is to empower CEOs to cultivate efficient teams that don't tie you down 24/7. Selina, welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Hey, Joe. Hey, everyone.
I love this topic. I mean, my book Thursday is the New Friday, and all the things that even the boundary setting section that I had in the new Harvard Business Review book. When it comes to using your time wisely, that is something that whenever I have a guest around that, I'm just so excited. Take us back though to when you first got into this work. Was this something you knew that you wanted to dive into for the last however many years, or was it something you kind of discovered along the way?
It was something I discovered. Delegation, I was actually doing it for forever, but I didn't actually know I was doing it. I was just naturally good at it. And when I started my business 7 years ago, I started with a virtual assistant agency. And I was very successful at understanding a business owner's operations and matching them with the ideal person they needed in their business. And we were connecting them with these amazing team members, these virtual assistants. And what I noticed was the business owner wasn't utilizing them because they were still doing all the things. They couldn't get out of their head what they needed them to do, or it could be that they didn't trust them to do the work, or they felt like they couldn't quite do it like them, but they had them there on the sideline paying this money out, but they weren't getting a return of investment. So it's like, aha,
Mm.
I think you need help with delegation. You need to delegate because I know the challenges you're having right now. You're burning out, you're working long hours, things are slipping through the net. You could be impacting so many more lives if only you would just delegate. So that's how my delegation journey started.
Yeah. Now, I think that that's such a common, you named a couple mindsets there that I see all the time with our consulting clients, with Next Level Practice, Group Practice Boss, all of our communities. And one of them that I want to kind of underline that you just said was only I can do it best. That I know this inside and out, and I don't want to hand it off. Can you speak to that mindset a little bit and how essential it is to move away from that? And maybe even some tips on moving away from that.
It's so easy because I think our business is our baby. We're used to doing everything ourselves when we first started our business. It can be really challenging to then think about somebody else doing it for you to represent your business. But I like to look at it from a bigger picture of what's my vision? What am I trying to achieve? And when am I going to get to that end goal? Even if it's just a small marker. And to be able to get to there, we can't do everything in our business. We need the support, we need that help. And to have that guided trust is so fundamental to grow in your business, but also to give you the headspace and the free time to think. So, to enable you to have someone in your business to do something is a real game changer. And some of the tools that I use to help me and to delegate to my team is a simple tool called Loom, Loom, which I use every day throughout the day. And it's a great tool that I use to be able to record what I'm doing, whether that's creating a blog, it's something that needs changing graphically through my ebooks, through my website. I will record the notes of what I need doing and then send it to that individual team member so they know exactly what needs doing. And then
Selena, I
99.
gotta pause you right there. I gotta pause you. It's so hilarious when this happens. So, this goes live in July, and we're recording this months ahead of that. Literally, Nicole, who was in the episode before you, was talking about training her team and spoke about Loom in the previous
Oh,
episode.
okay.
Also, it's so
Right.
funny. It's like Loom is not a sponsor. I use Loom all the time. I love Loom for training.
Okay.
It's just
Yeah.
I love when there's this synchronicity where I didn't even plan to have like a series on outsourcing or bottlenecks or things like that, but
Right.
then it just happens, and I just gotta say I freaking love it. So continue how you're using Loom.
Yeah, so I just it's free for 5 minutes, and you can do, it's just an amazing resource. And just use this as an SOP. It has an amazing transcription feature in there, so you can actually build your SOPs through the software. Just use it. It's going to be your best friend in your business. And I found that when I'm delegating, yes, it's great to use a project management tool, but you need Loom as an addition to that, because think of it like when you go shopping in, I say IKEA, I don't know how you pronounce it, but
That's how we
when you
say it.
okay, great. So when you buy, for example, a wardrobe, they're going to give you a manual of like a visual of page by page, maybe 20-page book of how to do it. And some people are great at visualizing that. Some people need it in text form. Some may need to go to YouTube to see it. Everybody's learning practices and how they digest information is completely different. And also, if you're working with people from a different country or nationality, that may be a barrier also. So to be able to give someone a video, for them to be able to actually read it, and then to hear your instructions and see, you're covering all bases to make sure that actually they're meeting those expectations. And then the last bit I love about this is if they get promoted in the business or they leave, you still have that resource available. So you're not having to start from square one.
Yeah, I love that. Now, I want to kind of zoom in on solo practice owners, and then we'll talk about group practice owners. So, a typical solo practice owner, when we're past the startup phase, the startup phase, they're getting things organized, they're getting their first couple of clients, things like that. So, I'm thinking people that they're regularly seeing maybe 10 to 20 clients per week. They're bringing in some decent money for the business. They're thinking, okay, maybe I'm missing phone calls, I'm missing emails, I'm dropping the ball in other areas because I'm doing more clinical work now. What's the low hanging fruit for them in regards to delegation through systems or people? Like, how would you think through that with people that are in that 50 to 100K range as a counselor in private practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've got a client at the moment I'm working with, and she's got some great movements that pieces that she's having in her business, but she's in kind of catch-22 where she needs the help, but she can't hire someone full-time in her business. So what we looked at is what's all the projects, the key projects that's happening in her business, what's her zone of genius, what are the things that only she can do, and what are the smaller pieces maybe that are important but a waste of her time that we can actually give to someone else. So we looked at, for example, pitch decks. They are quite time consuming, and she's not graphically intellectual to be able to do that. So we've looked at hiring someone who can actually just come in on an ad hoc basis, who can create those pitch decks for her in her business. So it's looking at your practice and looking at what's the day-to-day tasks that you're fulfilling, and maybe there's some admin duties that someone can come in for a small period of time, maybe as a virtual assistant, and do 5 hours a week that you can commit to them helping you with. Maybe it's not answering the phones, answering emails, checking your inbox, making sure that you're actually responding to emails within 24 hours and not losing customers because you haven't got back to them within a week's time frame. So small things like that you start to see that are slipping through the net are the key areas that you need to start asking someone to come into the business to help you with.
That's so awesome. Now, as people start to bring in their first couple virtual assistants, what are some of those mindsets? So one of them that you already mentioned was only I can do it. Let's talk about that one. But then, what other mindsets do people tend to need to overcome when they're looking at outsourcing?
Yeah, so remotely working with someone remote, that can be a real mindset. How can I trust somebody if they're in a different country or they're not next to me at my desk? And there's great tools, like I mentioned, Loom. There's other great tools that you could be using to make sure that that quality check is there. And you're not giving someone the keys to the kingdom from day one. You can start off slowly with a few projects, a few tasks, just to ease your way in and quality check that work before then you start giving them other pieces to do. So that's one area that's a challenge, is how can I trust this person? How do I know that they're actually going to be doing the work? How are they going to represent my business? And I think from the beginning, you need to share your vision, your ethos, what it is that you're trying to achieve in the business, so they really understand what it is that you're trying to achieve, so that they actually feel part of the business, and part of that journey, and they feel like they're actually being an instrumental piece of the business, rather than it feeling transactional where it's just like a 9 to 5, do this, do that, go home, come back the next day. So I find that if you invest your time in those team members and actually train them at the beginning, you will actually reap the rewards for the longevity of that position.
Mm. Yeah, I think that it's funny, that idea of working with people virtually. Before the pandemic, I got so many questions because most of my team is in South Africa, and Jen, who's our head of people and projects, she's in Pennsylvania, and then Kate's on the East Coast. So the only person I've only met a couple of them in person a few times, and people did have that question, like, how can you trust them? But I think what it does is it points back to something I talk about in the book, and that's the shift from an industrialist mindset to a post-industrialist mindset. That idea that industrialists, like Henry Ford, created the assembly line to spit out a Model T every 17 minutes or something like that. That you plug it in, and that's the view of people as well. They come in for 40 hours, they sit down in a chair. The biggest key performance indicator is, were you there on time and did you stay till the end? And so we aren't looking at KPIs around actual work performance in that industrialist model. It's actually just like, were you there and did you have the widget spit out on the other side? Whereas this post-industrialist model, we're looking at, what is the reason for this role? Like, is this person in the right seat? Are they in the right project? Similar to like what they talk about in Traction in that book. And when you have someone virtually, when you have an assistant, or people spread out across the world like we do, it forces us to really kind of say, like, why have we hired this person? Like, what are the things that are on their top 3 or top 5 things that they need to do in that role? And if they're doing it, then there's not a whole lot of feedback I need to give. And if they're not doing it, then we need to work on why and make sure they're in the right chair and the right seat, and doing the right projects. When you think about other things that get in the way of people outsourcing beyond just they can't do it as well as me, what else gets in the way of maybe solo practitioners outsourcing?
I think they're scared because maybe they've hired before and it hasn't gone right. Maybe they've hired a family member, or they've hired a school leaver, they've hired and it's just not gone right. So they feel like they've been burned before. They don't want to go through that again. So they'd rather just burn everything to the ground and start again on their own. And that can be a difficult position to be in, because there's been some challenges in the past and they don't know how to get beyond that. And the way I like to look at it is, sometimes we need to, as business owners, actually get through and look at, why did it go wrong? What were the key things that we could improve on for the next time? And often I notice that it's that we hire too quickly and we bring people into the business without having a real clarification of actually, where are the missing gaps? What is it that I actually need them to do? What are those tasks I need them to do? And hire based on those fundamentals. Do they have the skill sets? Do they have the experience? Am I getting recommendations, referrals, to make sure that they actually pass these quality checks before they come into the business? So if we follow those steps, we're more likely to bring in someone that's going to be perfect for the business and meet those expectations. And that will then help you to get over that challenge of worrying about not having the right people in the business.
Yeah, dig into that a little bit more. So when you think about getting the right people into the business, you're like having quality checks, having these. You kind of listed a bunch of things there. What type of tools or questions would you ask before you bring someone into the business to ensure that they're going to be a good fit, or at least have a better probability? We can never guarantee it, but to have a better probability that they're going to be a good fit in the business.
So the first thing I actually do is I invite the team I have already to check that we actually need this person, because often we can get excited about bringing someone in and we don't actually need them because there's someone else there already. But also I like to actually map out what those tasks are and just check it with the team to make sure they think it's someone worthwhile bringing in. And then you actually need to create a job description first, so that when you're posting it online or through job postings, that you're actually attracting the right person for that role. So you're attracting, like a salesperson, when you say this product is for you if, and it's not for you if, so that you are actually bringing in the people who are actually aligned with your values and your vision and the role and have the experience, and then you're rejecting the people who are not quite right fit for that position. So that's the first key step, is that part, and then following through on it through the interview stages. And what you want to check is that actually, if you've asked, have they got 5 years experience, or can they do this treatment, or name a time when you've undergone this treatment with a client, or tell me when you've had a difficult problem, they can actually answer those questions. I like to be able to have those questions ready, so 10 questions minimum. And it's the same questions you ask each interviewer, each candidate, and you're scoring them based on how that interview process went, those questions went with each individual, so that you're getting a really generalized overview of who would be a good fit based on that process alone.
Mm.
Something always comes up when you're running a private practice. Well, Gusto's payroll and HR services can make it a little easier. Gusto was designed for you, the small business owner. They take the pain out of running a business, automatically calculating paychecks, filing payroll taxes, setting up open enrollment. Gusto does it all. Want more? Time tracking, health insurance, 401k, onboarding, commuter benefits, offer letters, access to HR experts. You get the idea. With Gusto, you can focus on the joy of running your business. It's super easy to set up and get started. And if you're moving from another provider, Gusto can transfer all the data for you. It's no surprise 99% of businesses said the value they get for Gusto is worth the price. And here's the best part. Because you're a listener, you get 3 months totally free. All you have to do is go to gusto.com/Joe. Again, that's gusto.com/Joe. I'm telling you, you're going to love Gusto. Get started today.
Now let's move into group practices. So we have group practice owners that have smaller group practices, 5 to 10 clinicians, and then mega group practice owners, and they obviously have different needs. So let's just kind of follow that counselor journey. When people are adding clinicians in, they have a team, some of the things that I start to see, especially in that jump from 5 to 10, is the need for a clinical director. Who's the go-to person that is going to cover clinical issues? The owner really shouldn't at that point be that person, unless they're like they love being that clinical person. But to really automate it outside of themselves, they sometimes have a biller, they sometimes have, their front desk staff. What other things, as they start to grow, should they have in mind, and should they keep in mind as they create their operations, as they think about who's doing what?
Yeah, I think that it's a key point you mentioned there is when you're building that 5 to 10 people, is at the moment they may be all reporting into you, and that's eating into your time. So the key point here is to protect your time, protect your energy at all costs, and every day be thinking about, what can I delegate today? What can I give to somebody else to do? And have those key direct reports in your business to be able to free up your time, that headspace, so you can actually think and do the things you need to do to get the most out of your day and week. So having that clinical director could be one point. It could also be having an executive assistant who is your right hand support to be able to monitor and flow of everything else that's coming through the business. So they're kind of gatekeeping. So you're not involved so much in the inbox, in the day-to-day activities within social media or phone calls. So that what we need to happen is, what are your key focuses, whether that's bringing in new clients, speaking to your customers, doing more marketing, podcasts, launching a book, creating a course, whatever your core focus is, that you're spending 80% of your time there, and that other 20% is then being in the business, and then directing and guiding and nurturing and doing that leadership side with your team. And enable you to get there, it's through having those direct reports in your business, so that they are upholding those key different areas within your business without you having to be involved in it.
Yeah, so good. I think there's a big mindset jump for therapists when they start to grow beyond that 10 clinicians. And those that I see that are most successful with 7-figure and multi 7-figure practices are the ones that do that very jump of that they are maybe the face of the business. They're focusing on strategic partnerships. They're really guiding the team, and they're not in the day to day as much. Whereas those that really are kind of embedded in the actual practice, they oftentimes just are limited by that, because they don't have the time to go in. When you think about really scaling, so businesses, and I know you have lots of expertise beyond practices. When you think about large businesses, what are they doing well to outsource, to scale, to not have those leaders be the bottleneck?
Yeah, I think when I started off independently, it was just me. So my website always had me, it had images for me. It was always I. So I had to change that translation on the website, but also in my mind, because I'm one of those, I'm quite a people pleaser, and I always will say yes to a lot of things. So I had to shift those boundary expectations and my time availability, that wasn't always available to jump on a call with anyone. I had to delegate that to somebody else to be able to take over. And it's the same with practices and businesses, that you need to be able to share the vision and the thoughts that are going through your head. So it's those weekly communications, whether that's channels through Slack, it's through team meetings or in person phone calls. You need to be able to communicate with your leadership team, but then also be able to filter that down. So whether you're the cleaner, you're the receptionist, you're the manager, you're in operations, you're a director, everybody understands their role and responsibility. Everybody understands the vision of the business and what's upcoming in the business, what's the core goals. So they're all clearly aligned with what they need to do, but where the business is going also.
Mm. Yeah, that's so great. Well, I want to talk, because you had mentioned that our best ideas come out when we're not stressed out. And that's something that I spend a whole third of the book on, talking about slowing down. We hosted Slow Down School for a number of years here in Northern Michigan. And I see it over and over that when we're stressed out and maxed out, we don't have our best ideas. That our best ideas come when we're taking a shower, going for a walk, having a day off. I swear, the second that I start getting a massage, I have so many ideas about practice the practice that I have to say to my brain, "Stop it! You're here to have a massage and enjoy it." But it's when we slow down that oftentimes our best ideas come out. Share with us what you've seen in regards to, as people delegate and stop being the bottleneck, what kind of leveling up do you tend to see?
Oh, there's a huge shift. When clients come to me, they say, I can't have Fridays off. I'm having to answer phones when I'm meant to be having dinner with my family. I've missed weddings. I've missed a lot of things. It's had detrimental impact to my business. My wife's given me 1 year. Otherwise, our marriage is off. And, you know, I've seen this through being able to delegate effectively has actually enabled them to go for lunch on Fridays with their friends, to have Fridays off so they can go traveling into Mondays, because they know their team are handling everything, but also that the business is still operating and they're still making money in their business. And I've seen this myself when I take rest and reflect days. I started doing it every quarter. So I'd go out of my business for 1 day away from my home. I'd usually go to the spa or a hotel or somewhere in the outdoors. And I'll just take a note, paper and pen intentionally so that I don't get into work mode. And I'll just start flowing with what's in my mind and where I am and what I need to be doing next and how the team are progressing. And I find that when I'm disconnected from work and the thought of I need to structure my day and do this, this, and this, it actually allows me to have that free headspace to think. And it's quite right. The more I slow down, the more my cup is full, the more energy I have to give to my community. And even those little pieces now I interject into my week. I have these purple days that I add into my weekly schedule, which is, for example, being able to go for a cycle every day, watching a great movie, or just having 10 minutes to daydream and look at the clouds outside, are these little things that help me to live more of a fulfilling life, but also to realign and ground myself that I can't do everything and that I need to be able to give something to other people to do. Because many years ago, I was always go, 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 hustle, 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 money, money, money. And now I'm all about slow down, protect my peace and energy, and live a more fulfilling life. And through that secondary, the money will flow.
Yeah, I think then you make fewer mistakes. You also focus on the right things. I tend to be such an idea person, and it's been really helpful to have Jen and Sam in our top leadership, where I dump my ideas into a place in Asana and then let it sit for a bit, let it simmer, and then we talk through the ups and downs, what's it going to take. And as a person that's more idea heavy and implementation light, I get excited about the ideas, but then when we look at the actual full project scope, that idea loses a little bit of energy. And so I think it's good to have those ideas coming, but then it's also like so great to then give it that time. Whereas when you're in that hustle mode and maybe you don't have as many checks and balances, you can run full tilt and be excited about something to get zero or minimal results. And so I think that slowing down helps you be in it for the long haul. I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk that I heard a long time ago that people overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in a decade. And thinking about how Practice the Practice was launched, almost 12 years ago, to think about 1,000 episodes of this show, and as we've been slow and steady, we've noticed consultants that come out running and they're flashy and they're doing all the right things in social media, get a bunch of followers, and then they just burn out after a year or two. Whereas that slow and steady and doing good work and working with people over the long haul, at least for us, that seems to be working. I would love for our last question for you to just tell us, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
Don't be the lid on your business growth. You are great at what you do. You're doing amazing things with your clients. Delegate to elevate in your business. Free up your time to focus on more of the things that you love to do.
Delegate to elevate. I love that. If people want to connect with you, where should we send them?
So yeah, I have a freebie for your audience today. It's called What's Your Delegation IQ? It's a free quiz, and it's going to assess your delegation skills, and it's going to give your listeners an insight into where they are right now. It's going to give you a score out of a percentage. Then it's going to give you the results as a traffic light score system. So green is what you're doing amazingly well. Amber, you need to make some tweaks. And red is, okay, let's work on focusing on fixing these action points. And it's going to walk you through those steps of how to do that. So you can go to selinajohnson.com/quiz to get access to that today.
So awesome. Selina, thank you so much for being on the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Thank you.
we've been covering a ton of awesome just interviews this summer. If you missed our summer series on movers and shakers that we did earlier in the summer, definitely go back to that. We interviewed Elise from Goop Lab, talking about how women can get unprogrammed for goodness. And we talked with Gio about having a mind cracked open. We talked about the overvaluation of happiness and managing imposter syndrome. So many different things that we covered earlier this summer. So make sure you check that out as well. Ash did our podcast series on mega group practices. And then Melissa, our newest consultant, is going to be doing a series coming up as well on mega group practices and clinical directors and all of that sort of stuff. In late July, we're going to be starting our Level Up Week series. So these are all recordings from our spring 2024 Level Up Week to prep us for September's Level Up Week, when we're going to be doing a bunch of trainings that are totally for free. But we're resharing all of those trainings that we did in the springtime. Many of you weren't able to come to the live webinars, so we want to make sure that you get access to that as well. And again, our memberships are going to be opening up again in September, so mark your calendars for that. That's right around the corner. But don't get done with summer yet. Like we're just in the middle of summer. We don't have to start thinking about fall and stress and all the things that come with kids going back to school and year-end goals. It's summertime. Let's enjoy it. Let's listen to some podcasts at the beach and hang out a little bit.
Today's episode was sponsored by Gusto. Gusto is who we use for our payroll solutions. I absolutely love it because it helps do all the taxes and file everything, and I don't have to worry about having a whole accounting team or a bookkeeping team that's doing that payroll. So try gusto.com/Joe. You're going to get 3 months totally free. It's going to help you with your payroll and so many other things, like doing open enrollment, filing payroll taxes, calculating paychecks, all that sort of stuff you can do with Gusto. Again, that's gusto.com/Joe. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.